From out of the Mediterranean Sea, they rise to 15,771 feet. They are a range of superlative heights, a mountain realm unlike any other. To explore some of the most breathtaking and awe-inspiring landscapes in the world, we'll climb the Alps of Europe. The Alps stretch from the Mediterranean Riviera nearly all the way to Vienna, Austria. They cover 80,000 square miles in the heart of Europe and occupy parts of 8 countries. The Alps emerge from the sea along the Côte d'Azur, beneath the Principality of Monaco, one of the smallest countries in the world at less than a square mile. Over 30,000 people crowd into this tiny port on the Mediterranean Sea. Formula One Grand Prix racers and their fans make pit stops here, as do large cruise ships loaded with tourists. High-rolling visitors bring boatloads of cash aboard their own private luxury yachts, and the casino at Monte Carlo accommodates them with its elite gaming parlors. The elegant building also houses the city's opera hall, among mirrors, chandeliers, gold leaf accents, and tile mosaics. Below the Palace of the Prince, with its daily changing of the guard, and invasions of school children having a blast on field trips. One of this city-state's many parks is dedicated to the memory of its famed Princess Grace. Monograms of the princess adorn the gates to a quiet rose garden kept in her honor. What is so special about a rose that it seems far more than a flower she once observed? Perhaps it is the mystery it has gathered through the ages. Perhaps it is the joy that it continues to give. Inland, we come to the small town of Grasse, where roses, lavender, and jasmine are distilled into perfume. It's the town's main industry, and you might say they make sense. Artistically composed fragrances are destined for all kinds of products, including soaps, colognes, and cosmetics. Museums and factory tours here lead visitors around by the nose, you might say. Courses are offered to those who would like to create their own personal perfumes, creating more than just common sense, you might say. The coastal area at the base of the Alps is known as the Riviera of Flowers. On his return from exile, Napoleon and his troops did not stop to smell the flowers. They marched through Grasse and up the River Durance toward the French town of Sisteron, which guards the very gates of the province of Provence. A mysterious shortage of gunpowder left the town unarmed at the time, allowing the emperor to pass unthreatened to complete his triumphant return to Paris. The countryside of the north is separated from Provence at a vertical ridge of limestone called Le Rocher de la Baume, broken by the Durance River. Upon the west side of this natural fortification rests the citadel, guarding the narrows here since at least the 13th century, upon foundations which may date to pre-Roman times. Towering above the trees, the castle protected the only medieval stone bridge over the river within 40 miles. The Durance River drains the area, eventually flowing into the Rhône River Valley, a noted wine-growing region of southern France. These low coastal mountains gradually give way to allow glimpses of blue alpine summits far in the distance. This area is known as the Plei Alps, foothills of the Southern Alps. During the daytime, the ramparts and passageways of the citadel are open for exploration. Its heights are surmounted by a narrow, scenic causeway, while its depths include an underground stairway dug in 1841, leading all the way down to the city's northern gate, about a quarter of a mile down those steps. Heavily damaged by Allied bombing late in World War II, the Gothic vaults of the Citadel's chapel, Our Lady of the Castle, have been reconstructed now to shelter a bookshop and art gallery. Here you'll find an assortment of prints featuring the citadel and the town below. Providing a peek at Provence, an artisan's fair occupies the square here today, selling fine wines and olive oils, fresh olives, mushrooms and garlic, candied nuts and breads, homemade jams, jellies, marmalades and sweet honey, alongside ceramics, paintings, and homemade crafts. Surrounding shops offer quiches and crepes, and a local specialty, a fresh strawberry glazed tourte. Boulangeries here seem to compete with each other to see who can bake the finest, most delicious pastries and sweets. They are artisans and call themselves as such. Spices of thyme, rosemary, sage, marjoram, tarragon, and savory grow in these hills, providing flavor and tenderness to local dishes, including a specialty known as cicerone lamb. Among the wild herbs, the countryside blooms with brilliant red poppies, providing spice for la joie de vivre, the joy of life, and painting us a memorable impression of southern France. The Alpine Lake Country waters the foothill areas north of the Po Valley of Italy, as well as the southern Ticino canton of Switzerland. Today, the canton of Ticino celebrates its 200th anniversary. The celebration here in Bellinzona produces neighborhood street fairs with music, wine, and cheese. Each piazza has its own musicians. They entertain their neighbors with Italian Swiss gusto. This may be part of Switzerland, but there's definitely an Italian feel. There is a pride in their Swiss heritage. They guard their culture even as they watch over their own children.
il fiorello, l'amore è bello vicino a te. Ma quando tu sei con me, io sono felice perché io il fiorello, l'amore è bello vicino a te.
Hey! Now that was pretty good, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. Not just one, but 3 medieval fortresses here guard the passes north to the high Alps. Another long Swiss tradition is carried on in chunks of Swiss chocolate. Columbus is said to have brought cocoa back from the Americas to Italy in 1502. Near Lake Lugano, the Alprose chocolate factory turns the finest raw beans into liquid happiness. Visitors can nibble and sniff their way through the factory tour here, sample fresh Swiss chocolate, and stock up on a variety of packaged goodies on their way out naturally through the gift shop. Open wide. Lago Maggiore is famous for its islands. A number of different water taxi and ferry boat ticket packages are available here, so you can choose just the islands and towns you'd like to visit. One of the best of these islands is Isola Madre. While it has picturesque botanical gardens set around a quiet palace villa containing minor art treasures, it's the birds that attract most of the attention here. Among the exotic models which rule the palace roost are pheasants and parrots. But it's definitely the peacocks who put on the best fashion show. He's trying to get her to notice him. But the peahen seems unimpressed by his looks. Perhaps his color scheme doesn't match the fashions in Milan this season. Italian women like their men to be fashionable. Poor guy. He's out of style. His eyes are all on her, but perhaps she has her eye on someone else. A handsome white peacock. What a show-off. You'll notice that he is not an albino. Observe the eyes. They're black. Yes, Isola Madre is a beautiful place. But this isn't the island they call Isola Bella, or Beautiful Isle, which seems to be everyone's favorite. The main building here is the Palazzo Borromeo, which is open to the public for tours. The island features terraced gardens with layers of landscaping, statues, and lots of summer tourists. The Grand Palace of the Borromeo family holds a 4-story ballroom, whose wonderful acoustics provide the perfect sound for a choral group on their own way through the palace. Choral groups touring Europe sometimes break into song in a beautiful space such as this, just to hear the acoustics. An unexpected and welcome highlight of our tour. Later in Salzburg, we'll hear this happen again. Isola Bella, indeed. As our memorable day fades away, it's time to relax in Stresa, the mainland departure point for island tours. Dinner is late in Italy. Cafes don't get busy here until after 9. Later still, the promenade fills with couples out on a romantic evening stroll called a passeggiata. It's quiet time. A Lake Country slogan here says, Dolce far niente, meaning it's sweet to do nothing. Lago Como has been called the most romantic lake in Italy. The poet Longfellow was inspired to write, I ask myself, is this a dream? Will it all vanish into air? Is there a land of such supreme and perfect beauty anywhere? From Varna on the eastern shore, it's just a short ferry ride across one leg of Lago Como to Bellagio, meaning beautiful lake, one of the most famous old towns in Italy's Lake Country. Bellagio is narrow staircases and cobblestone alleys, where cars laminate shoppers and residents against the walls of the high streets of this hill town. Bellagio is renowned for the silk products made in the region, and shoppers navigate the hillside streets to browse the finest in silken garments. Other shops offer a look at ceramics, paintings, sculpture, and other art objects. Just off the harbor promenade, American artist Ezra Katz completes a fresh painting of the local color. From there, it's a multicolored, fragrant walk through the blooming azalea and rhododendron gardens of the lakeside Villa Melzi. Delicious aromas draw you back to the bustling back streets and alleys for a pedestrian snack of tasty-looking pizza, followed by any of a dozen different varieties of Italian gelato. Finally, return to the waterfront to enjoy drinks or cappuccino at the lakeshore, and watch the evening disappear across the lago. Buonasera. People have lived attached to these mountainsides for eons. It is old here. History seeps from the earth. Above the Val Camonica, near the small Italian town of Capo di Ponte, ancient writings and symbols etch the stones. At the Parco in Sisione, school children learn of their prehistoric predecessors. The park has over 40,000 inscriptions dating from the late Iron Age. The ancient rocks of the Dolomite Mountain Group are composed of calcium magnesium carbonate, an ingredient common in antacid. This is worth mentioning because there's such a diversity of food to be found, for example, in the street markets of Bozen or Bolzano, Italy. Shoppers find Verona peaches, Sicilian oranges, Sardinian cheeses, prosciutto ham, and Pinot Grigio wine from Friuli with fresh local flowers for your table. Find ingredients for canardi or goulash, for a bowl of homemade Würstel soup, for stuffed tortellini and cream sauce with prosciutto ham, for home-fired pizza. Top it off with fresh fruit or homemade apple strudel and vanilla sauce, and you've got the flavor of this area of Italy. This land seems to have three identities: one Italian, one Austro-German, and a third all its own, a combination of neither. This is, I guess, what is Tyrolia. At first, it's confusing to try and figure out which language to use here. Valley cities and major towns seem to converse adamantly in Italian, while rural farms and mountain villages prefer German, but both languages are spoken everywhere. So, from the rich valley fields of Bozen or Bolzano, we'll walk off all those calories and head higher into the mountains. Noted architect Le Corbusier once called the Dolomites the most beautiful architecture in the world. These mountains were fortified and fought over by the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Italian Kingdom during World War I. They do seem to summon great powers. It is said that nearby Cremona resident Antonio Stradivari used to go walking in the Dolomites to gather just the right wood to craft his violins. Over 400 Stradivarius pieces survive today and are among the most treasured music instruments in the world. Today, this is still a very popular place to go walking. Cable cars and buses bring visitors up to the Alpe di Suzzi in Italian, or Zeitzer in German, a popular plateau of green alpine pastures, full of tourists grazing on the scenery. At about 23 square miles, it is said to be the largest and highest plateau in Europe. There's plenty of room to get away from most crowds here, and quiet, easy pathways lead off to every direction. The Dolomites are quite literally breathtaking. They seem so deceptively easy to climb, they claim your breath, but reward you with a never-ending succession of panoramic viewpoints, each one even better than the one just before. The Dolomites were formed from the corals of an ancient sea. Today, its waves are green pastures, crested by alpen roses. Its tides, the seasons, ebb and flow. Its shores reach for islands in the sky. You might expect to see Heidi in this landscape. Germanic peoples from Bavaria have been here since the 7th century. 2/3 of this rural mountain region speaks German, the remainder Italian, with some Ladin. Ladin is a German-influenced, Latin-based language spoken only in certain valleys here. Although the area still bears the influences carried here from the north, it has become a unique part of today's Italy. Moving right along, the Strada della Dolomiti from Bolzano to Cortina d'Ampezzo is a spectacular road route through the Dolomites, particularly busy on weekends. Also known as the Große Dolomitenstrasse, it has views of most of the major peaks here, including the Rosegarten Range, Monte Civetta, Marmolada, Sassolungo, past Cinque Torri to Cortina d'Ampezzo. Now doesn't that look like fun? But if paddle boats are more your speed, Lago di Miserina offers a cool, quiet respite beneath Dolomite peaks. Ah, peaceful. At Cortina d'Ampezzo, it is Corpus Christi Sunday. Prayerful worshippers follow the religious procession as it winds through the streets to the Catholic Church. Youngsters who've received their first Holy Communion today walk with the crowds, everyone dressed in their finest Sunday best, to gather and witness the holy outdoor display. Once the short service is over, a gold-embroidered canopy shelters the priest as he carries the golden monstrance back into the church. Although Cortina is a popular ski resort today, these mountains were once the site of a major siege between the Italian and Austrian forces during World War I. Both forces tunneled through the mountains around Falzarego Pass and blew holes in each other's fortifications. The area is now a National Historic Park. Today, both cultures live together here in the Dolomites, side by side. Our visit to the Dolomites now behind us, we'll head beyond the Brenner Pass to the other side of the Alps. Liechtenstein rests on the east bank of the Rhine between Switzerland and Austria, just south of Germany. The Rhine is born of glaciers above Switzerland's Oberalp Pass. The Rhone River begins its journey just on the other side of the pass. While the Rhone flows westward toward the province of Provence, the Rhine flows east toward the small country of Liechtenstein. Only 34,000 people live here. The tiny country is just 15 miles long and 7 miles wide. You get the feeling that if you stepped back far enough, you could take a picture of the whole country. You might say that it's the size of a postage stamp, but actually, it's the size of a lot of postage stamps. At the Stamp Museum in Vaduz, displays document one of Liechtenstein's most important arts, the production of stamps. Exhibits explain the process, from the original artwork through the finished product. This is a stamp collector's dream museum, but anyone can enjoy the collections, from the old and rare through the illustration of a culture. The country is a constitutional monarchy led by Prince Hans Adam II, the 13th Prince of Liechtenstein. Schloss Vaduz is the ancestral home of the princely family, and while it is not open to the public, it does serve as a landmark of the country. The castle overlooks the small city of Vaduz, one of the smallest capitals in Europe, and famous for its banking industry. Award-winning wines come from the vineyards of the prince, planted primarily with Pinot Noir. In Liechtenstein, there are artistic sculptures everywhere. Architecture here is fine art. Public art fills the squares and alleys. The prince is said to possess one of the finest private art collections in all of Europe. Even the landscaping here seems to be fine art. Most of the rest of the country is rural farmland and mountainside villages. Life here seems to flow along quite peacefully. Today, however, the distant mountains echo with the sounds of Alp horns. They're often used to announce weddings or other special occasions. Today, it's a Lederhosen festival. Apparently, any excuse will do. Those high notes are tough, and apparently it helps if you hop up and down. There's a noticeable difference in the people of Liechtenstein. It's not that they speak an Alemannic dialect of German. It's not so much that all the people here might seem to know each other. It's like they just know they share something. A life set apart. Their country and their prince take care of them, and they take care of their country. Only a nation the size of a large town could feel that connected, I suppose, and that seems just big enough for them. Historic homes, barns, and other structures have been brought in from all over Switzerland to form the Ballenberg Open-Air Museum near Brienz. In addition to being a snapshot of Swiss history, this is a living museum with hands-on demonstrations of age-old crafts, cooking, and other activities. Here, a weaver creates a multicolored pattern on her loom. Farm animals lend realism and a pungent aroma to these farm lanes and paths. A dairy farmer fires up a cauldron full of milk to make Swiss cheese with its characteristic holes. Melted Emmentaler cheese with spices and white wine dipped on pieces of bread is a recipe favorite for fondue. The town of Brienz is famous for its wood carving schools, and local carver Hess demonstrates his craft here at the Ballenberg. The museum is filled with examples of fine woodwork, including an ancient pair of nutcrackers made from walnut of all things, and a beautifully hand-carved, inlaid antique table with matching chairs. In Switzerland, personal achievement isn't recognized the same way as it is in America. Individual artisanship here adds to the community effort. Teamwork is the high standard of expectation here. The Swiss are indeed a crafty bunch, forging their future as they themselves see fit. Children learn young what is expected of them here. The Swiss are fiercely and historically independent as a nation, tough as nails, adapting to adversity and shaping themselves and their youngsters for the common national benefit. Trains and ships run on time here, Swiss time, because it's the national expectation. This nation was formed in 1291 at a place called Rutli Meadow, where the first 3 cantons of today's Switzerland pledged mutual protection against the threatening Habsburg rulers of Austria. Switzerland now has 26 cantons, which are similar to states or provinces. This confederation of cantons has remained steadfastly neutral through many of Europe's wars. This is a nation in the truly congressional sense of the word, a congress of cantons, a singularity of people, all working together like a well-oiled machine. Switzerland has nearly 1,500 lakes. The larger lakes are served by passenger ferries. 2 of these lakes, Brienzersee and Thunersee, seem like the summer camp of the Alps. Even composer Johannes Brahms spent his summers near Thun, near where the castle turret of Schloss Oberhafen rises from the lake. On a summer hike high above these lakes, wild chamois, ibex, and other native species can be found living on alpine slopes. The chamois is known as the alpine antelope, while the ibex is a large wild mountain goat. The chamois is notable for its uniquely curved horns and feeds on grass and bark, while the ibex carries a larger set of heavy, ridged horns. The chamois is generally very shy of humans. I suppose you would be too if everyone was after your soft leather hide to polish their cars with. Both animals can run and jump sure-footedly across rocky slopes, but can be seen up close at wild parks in lakeside towns here. They both came very close to extinction, but now thrive as wild symbols of the Alps. This takes us to the Jungfrau region of the Bernese Oberland area of Switzerland, and to the Lauterbrunnen Valley. One of several waterfalls in the valley, Trummelbach Falls drops through an impressive gorge so deep and narrow that very little light penetrates into its depths. Visitors follow dark tunnels and narrow stairways to view these raging ice-cold waters. Colored lights highlight the 10 glacial falls inside the mountain here, and up to 4,400 gallons of water per second thunder down this vertical chasm. These waters carry passages of glacial time. 1 grain of glacial ground stone in a drop, 1 drop of liquid stone at a time. once a year, the daily chime of church bells gives way to the rattle of cattle bells as small herds are driven upslope toward summer pastures. Now, why do these cattle carry bells? Well, perhaps because their horns don't work. Climbing until they run out of roads, farmers push their cattle up narrow country lanes. Today, they'll pass beyond the small village of Meulen, with its ancient Swiss chalets, weathered barns, and small family farms, toward grazing grounds with views of the high peaks of the Jungfrau Massif. Mountaineer Sir Martin Conway called these mountains the Walls of Heaven. Had they been built of transparent crystal, he said, they could not have been more brilliant. The views from these mountain villages of Lauterbrunnen, Wengen, Grindelwald, Gimmelwald, Meulen, and Mannlichen are among the best in Switzerland. A survey of some of the most dramatic scenery in the Alps. The wild diversity of alpine flowers growing on these heights is simply amazing. There are hundreds of varieties, colors, and shades. Among them, these stemless blue gentians. And the emblematic flower known and loved as Edelweiss will bloom a brilliant white late in the summer. These heights offer views of the Jungfrau, Munk, and Eiger peaks. Jungfrau is German for young maiden, and the monk protects the maiden from the ogre. The ogre, or Eiger in German, has an appropriate name, as the climb up the north face of Eiger is one of the most challenging and dangerous mountain ascents in the world. Access to this region is by train and tram, and the trip can be very steep. Special trains use cogwheels to climb and descend these steep slopes. The steepest rail journey here tunnels through the north face of Eiger to emerge at what is called the top of Europe. The Jungfraujoch is the highest railway station on the continent, at over 11,000 feet, less than just 3,000 feet beneath the summit of Jungfrau. One of the great things about coming up here is sliding down here. Visitors from all over the world enjoy the opportunity to go snow sledding on top of a glacier in the middle of July. American students from Oklahoma, who rarely see much snow, were particularly enjoying their summertime winter sport. Hello. The rail journey to the top is expensive, even by Swiss standards. But there are a number of things to do up here. Absorbing the scenery is top on the list. And there are several observation platforms at the station. There are also exhibits, a cafe, and a cave full of ice sculptures. Dog sled rides and mountain climbing lessons are also offered from time to time. A hike up to a nearby mountain hut across the summer snow of the glacier offers even more snow-covered scenery.
Sweet!
The white frosting of the Alesh Glacier, the largest glacier in Europe, blankets 45 square miles beneath the southern view of the station. The hike up to Munkshoek Hut, to an altitude of nearly 12,000 feet is a breath-robbing, high-altitude climb for over a mile. If you have the luxury of owning your own plane, however, the hike up is much shorter. The couple from this plane flew in for a meal of hot soup, then flew out again after lunch. Not a bad place to take a break. This place may be called the top of Europe, but it is not its highest point. We'll visit the highest point in Western Europe, along with many more highlights of the Alps, when we return after this brief intermission. Storm clouds often obscure this most famous mountain. A thing this tall and massive creates its own weather. Its sharp peak tears a rip in the blue fabric of the sky, and cloudy pillow stuffing spills out. The Matterhorn is the third highest of the Alps, but its distinctive, dramatic shape is what makes it perhaps everyone's favorite Alp. Trails branch out in all directions below the mountain, offering constantly changing views of one of the most famous skylines in the world. Signposts point you toward your destination, and if you knew where you were going, you'd know how to pronounce Bermultierwalbachensposten. But I really have no idea. Now, even if you don't know where you're going, getting there is easy. Many trails are fairly flat, well suited for an easy stroll. Most trails are connected to trains, ski lifts, and tramways. Packing a light lunch for the trail is always a tasty idea, but if it smells good enough, you might have visitors. Alpine marmots love these slopes above the tree line to dig their burrows and raise their pups. They seem such peaceful and inquisitive creatures, curious as children. And sneaking up on them can be fun. Now, come a little closer and listen up. I know a secret place where we can see them very well. No, it's not in there. No, it's not up there either. You have to walk this way and be very, very quiet. You have to stop pushing your sister, and make sure you don't talk too loud so you don't scare them. Oh, sorry. Shh. Just down this way. Over there. Look. The young ones, as well as the adults, love to wrestle and play rough. Marmots weigh an average of about 12 pounds and live between 5 and 10 years. This vegetarian rodent is related to squirrels, beaver, and mice, and live together in family groups. During the summer, they store up fat so that they can survive the cold hibernation in their dens during the winter. From fauna to flora, a hike around these highlands is a very enjoyable way to discover the Alps up close. Ride up on the ski lifts and walk your way down, passing little farming villages along the way. Some of the village huts in the resort of Zermatt are at least 300 years old. Others are unidentifiably ancient. Slate roofs keep the snow off, and strange stilts apparently keep rodents, like marmots, out of the house. But that doesn't mean they're not equipped with modern conveniences. From Zermatt, The Gornergrat Railway heads up toward Gornergrat Station, where diners relax on the outdoor terrace, taking in views of Monte Rosa, Gornergläser, and bratwurst with roasty potatoes. Sort of a hash brown, flavored with cheese. Delicious. The locals speak German, understand French, but say ciao to their neighbors. You can hear Spanish, Japanese, and the Queen's English here too. Just pull up a rock and listen to the world go by. Multinational snowball fights are always great fun. Look out! It stays cold up here all year round. The second highest Alp also rises near here. Obscured by clouds today at just over 15,000 feet, Duferspitze is Switzerland's highest. Switzerland has 140 glaciers, stretching like a string of pearls along the backbone of the Alps in either direction. Italy is just on the south side of these snowy peaks. In my mind, maybe because we're so close to Italy, these mountains begin to look a lot like Stracciatella gelato, I think, with crumbs of dark chocolate swirled among piles of creamy vanilla ice cream. Scenery so good, you can almost taste it. From Switzerland's highest peaks, we go now to Austria's highest peak, to the Salzkammergut region and the Hohtauern National Park, the largest in Europe, and the small town of Heiligenblut. Groß Gott is the common greeting in the Austrian Alps. It means great God. The name Heiligenblut means holy blood. The landmark church here at Heiligenblut commemorates the story of a bleeding crucifix and the relic of its holy blood kept enshrined here in the sanctuary. The tall spire of this parish church is one of the most photographed in Austria. It reaches for the peak of Großglockner, Austria's highest. The Großglockner Hochalpenstrasse, or High Alpine Road, is one of the most scenic highways in the Alps. It passes little roadside chapels and shrines along the way, arriving to a windy viewpoint at 7,000 feet. Visitors can climb the Swarovski Observation Tower or hike their way down a long series of steps for a glacial experience. The closer we get to the mountain, however, the more distant it becomes. Austria's highest peak closes in under clouds, and a July snowstorm covers its crests. Sudden weather changes, as well as stone and ice falls, sharp drops and crevasses are dangers to climbers on their two-day trip to the summit. The modern sport we now know as mountain climbing was born on nearby Ankogel Peak. All that glacial runoff has to go somewhere. It wells from waterfalls and springs in the middle of the town of Bad Gastein. A bad is a bath in German, and thousands of tourists take the waters of Bad Gastein every year. These mineral waters emerge from well springs at a steamy 117 degrees and contain high levels of radioactivity. The many spas here recommend soaking in it, inhaling it, and even drinking several glasses of the stuff every day as a cure for everything from asthma to rheumatoid arthritis. Zzzt. Treatments range from mud packs to massage, from thermal baths to inhalation therapy. The Victorian-era town, however, could use a facelift of its own. It seems to have lost some of its shimmer over the years. Perhaps a kind of radioactive decay. Even the ice cream here comes with its own radiant flare. It's not only the waters of this area, but the minerals as well which are important, particularly the underground salts beneath the town of Hallstatt. There's nothing quite like dropping in on the world's oldest salt mine. These ancient saltworks fascinate those of us who are easily intrigued by a big hole in the ground, by mysterious subterranean chambers. Visitors get to slide down wooden chutes, just like the miners did it in the old days. They get to study rock salt mining up close. Then, they get to ride a mine train back to the surface. Who knew salt mining could be so much fun? You could even buy crystal salt from Austrian mines to take home for your own bath. If you make the pilgrimage to the town of St. Wolfgang, you can shop for a lot of different things, including fine linens and souvenirs. Perhaps a pair of lederhosen for the kids. Yeah, they'd love that. Perhaps a chess set or fine jewelry for yourself. Or some Austrian Swarovski crystal in the shape of a horse. You'll find a lot of horses here. White ones. A landmark of the town is the White Horse Inn, made famous by the opera of the same name. Today, kids in lederhosen gather near the inn to await the arrival of important dignitaries. They form the town's traditional dance group, and today they'll demonstrate those traditions. A pretty talented group of young people, I think. Angel's feet, a man in the crowd says. All the dignitaries and officials line up with the kids, and a moment is taken for a memorable photo with the press corps. Smile. Then it's the boys' turn. Those are all the proud moms in the background there. Now Now it seems the boys were all getting along quite well, but then a fight broke out. Well, sort of. Now some of these boys really get into this. Watch the boy in the foreground. Pow! He really goes flying. He was alright though. Thanks, guys. Now, if I could just have one more photo, please. Hey, look up here. Gotcha. These hills are alive with the sounds of music. Near to Salzburg, in a quiet part of the gardens of Hellbrunn Palace, I was able to find the summer pavilion used in the making of the movie The Sound of Music. It's not difficult to sit on these steps and dream of something good, remembering romantic scenes played out here from one of the most beloved movies of all time. I have some degree of confidence in me that Hellbrunn Alley here was the site of Julie Andrews' musical search for strength as she walked toward the Von Trapp family home. Not far away in Muncie, the former Abbey Church of St. Michael was the site of the wedding scene. Maria climbed every step to the altar to marry Captain Von Trapp. In real life, however, Maria and Georg von Trapp were married in the chapel of Nonnberg Abbey, where Maria left the cloistered life of a nun behind. Nonnberg Abbey is in the city of Salzburg. Salzburg is the city of music. There are concerts to be found every hour of the day and evening here. Music floats on every breeze. It is the sound of this city, its operetta of daily life. The Salzburg Festival has been an annual tradition here since 1920. The Rock Riding School Theater was the setting for the Salzburg Festival scenes from The Sound of Music. The large hall of the Festspielhaus has over 2,000 seats and boasts one of the largest stages in the world. Salzburg is one of the birthplaces of classical music. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on the third floor of this building on the Gottfriedgasse, one of the main shopping streets in the Altstadt, or Old Town. On the street, shoppers can find Mozart mementos of every kind. Busts, prints, stationery, china, and you can even smell like Mozart with cologne. Or make music in your mouth with mounds of chocolate candy. You can visit the stately rooms of the residence palace, where a cheeky 11-year-old Mozart let his fingers do the talking to an impressed hometown audience. A symphony of bells calls the faithful to prayer. Among the many art galleries, manicured gardens, magnificent palaces, and varied shopping districts of Salzburg, there are its churches. In the Altstadt, it seems as though every block has its own church. There's the University Church, St. Michael's, and St. Stephen's. The monastery on Kapuzinerberg overlooks the Old Town from the other side of the river. St. Peter's is exquisitely Baroque, a hidden gem tucked away in a corner of the Old Town. And then there's the one that dwarfs all others. The Dome Cathedral is immense. This huge cathedral, called the Dome, is said to accommodate 10,000 people at once. It was dedicated in 1628. This massive church was nearly destroyed during the bombings of World War II, and rebuilding was completed in 1959. Today, its galleries are filled with religious relics and treasures. Its artworks watch over vast spaces. Colorful ceiling murals inspire posture-bending inspection and introspection. But the highlight of a visit to the Dome might be an impromptu a cappella recital by a visiting choral group. Their voices reach for heaven. Rising above the city is the Festung Hohensalzberg Fortress. This imposing castle is the capital of Salzburg's skyline. The best part of the tour here is the high vantage point it offers. Wander its castle lanes, then explore the rest of the Monksberg's heights, and try to find the best vantage for a late afternoon view of the fortress and Old Town. Listen to the sound of Salzburg, and the music of its memory will stay with you. Over the border and through the woods, to Bavaria we go. What could be more traditional than a Bavarian beer fest, now serving the village of Königssee? There didn't seem to be any particular reason for this beer fest, other than the fact that it was Friday. But somehow I don't think it made any difference. Any time seems good for a beer and a bratwurst. Would you like mustard or ketchup on that? Or how about some freshly made radish chips? I'm told they're quite sweet, but I never tried one. The men fill the steins, the women serve the suds, the girls bust the tables, and the boys get to clean up. Life is good. Bavaria is a land of kings. Bavarian kings built this hunting lodge and chapel on the shores of King's Lake, or Königssee. Another residence of kings was Hohenschwangau Castle, the medieval home of the Knights of the Swan. It was also the boyhood home of King Ludwig II, who grew up wandering around these alpine foothills. He loved the area so much, he came back to build his own castle, a castle to be revered more than any other. Neuschwanstein means New Swan Rock, towering over his boyhood home. King Ludwig emptied the royal coffers to build this and other royal palaces. Some said he was mad and spent way too much royal money on his fairy tale castles. Begun in 1869, Neuschwanstein was left unfinished after King Ludwig's death 17 years later. His body was found floating in a nearby lake, dead of mysterious circumstances. Not far away is the village of Oberammergau, which is famous, among other things, for its painted houses. Through the magic of special effects, we can see the layer of artistry that has been applied to the side of the Pilatus house over the centuries. Close-ups show painted staircases and colonnades, and colorful window treatments. The flowers, of course, don't need to be painted. The village is filled with a number of these houses, including an orphanage that depicts the story of Hansel and Gretel, told in a series of panels. Rising above the fairy tale farmlands of southern Bavaria is Germany's highest peak, Zugspitze. At nearly 10,000 feet, the view on a clear day takes in parts of 4 countries. On the ride up, you're hanging in midair. The same holds true for the ride down. Wipeout. I entered Slovenia with some trepidation about what to expect here. The countryside looks dreary. Rail cars rot on tracks that haven't been used in decades. Farm fields look unproductive. In the industrial border city of Jasnica, oppressive murals tell of wars and regimes. The World War I Cemetery du Kants is a silent reminder that an estimated 1 million people lost their lives along the front lines in these mountains. But what emerged from my dim expectations was a country that amazed me. I'll try and show you why. The Alps enter only the northwestern corner of the country. These Julian Alps provide the backdrop to the small city of Bled and the lake of the same name. This area is on the same latitude as the lake country of Italy, and is not really very far from Venice as the crow flies. Here, boatmen row gondolas in the old way, taking tourists out across the lake as they have nearly every day for hundreds of years. Their arms must be getting really tired by now. Their destination, however, is a magical place. If you make the pilgrimage out to the island, if you make the long climb up the steps to the Church of St. Mary, and if you can make the bell ring, legend says that your wish will be fulfilled. It's harder than you might think. You must have faith. You must have perseverance. And Providence must smile upon you. You can hear the bell all day from the heights of Bled Castle, which offers commanding views of the lake, the city, and the entire area. "Don't worry," a man said. "It will not fall." He pointed around at the mountains. I realized he was talking about the sky, the clouds. It would not rain, he was saying. He was being overly optimistic. It rains a lot here, mostly in the afternoon. The thunder, as in many alpine valleys, rolls on for what seems like forever, echoing from the walls of the Alps' snowy peaks. This is Triglavsky National Park. Mount Triglav, Slovenia's highest peak, hides out above Bohinj Jezero, or Lake Bohinj. Lake Bohinj is 2.5 miles long, 3/4 of a mile wide, and just 150 feet deep. The water temperature here can get up to a balmy 72 degrees in the summertime. Such warm waters bring people out to the lake shore in droves. Some swimming, some not. Some wearing bathing suits, some not. Skinny dipping swimmers do enjoy Slovenian shores, some of them until they're old enough to acquire modesty, or too old to completely lose it. More than anything, though, it seems like not such a big deal here. I hear the Garden of Eden was once such a place. An electric-powered tour boat crosses the span of the lake, making for a peaceful ride across its smooth surface. But if you prefer paddle power instead, canoes and kayaks can be rented inexpensively for an hour or a day of uncrowded paddling pleasure. The west end of the lake features a campground and access to the Mount Vogel ski lift, as well as more beaches and boat rentals. The tour boat returns each hour back to the east end of the lake. The landmark here is the Church of St. John the Baptist, which dates to the 13th century. Its many frescoes, inside and out, are ancient treasures. Next to the church is the bridge that marks the end of the lake and the headwaters of the Sava Bohinjka River. I'm told it has some of the very best fly fishing in all of the Alps. The village at the end of the lake is called Ribche Lots, which means fisherman's land. Only fly fishing is allowed in the river, which drains the lake at the bridge. The fish, however, seem to prefer snacks thrown by visitors from the bridge. There's not a lot to do here at the lake, which is good because it forces you to relax and take in the constantly changing scenery. Each evening at sunset, the lake puts on its own spectacular light show. Some say that the lake's name derives from the local word for God. Other, less romantic explanations say that Bohín derives from either an Old Irish word for lake or the Slovenian word for fleas. It is said that when God divided the world among its peoples, He gave this most beautiful land in the world to the most humble and modest group waiting for a land to call home. This has to be one of the most sublime and beautiful places I have ever visited. I will remember this place long after I've left its shores. Our final chapter takes us back to France and its border with Italy, to Mont Blanc, the highest Alp. The tidal forces of the Sea of Ice push downhill at up to 300 feet per year. A new ice cave has to be dug each summer here to allow visitors a look inside the living glacier. This Sea of Ice, or Mer de Glace as they say in French, covers over 15 square miles, is nearly 5 miles long, and over 600 feet deep. From the glacier, a rocky path that's hard on the knees leads up along the Grand Balcon Nord, along the 7,000-foot level, providing views of the Chamonix Valley 4,000 feet below. At the Plan de la Clé, hikers can catch the tram down to Chamonix, or ride another 5,000 feet upslope to the jagged peak known as the Aiguille du Midi. It's a nearly vertical ride, up to an ear-popping altitude of 12,605 feet. When you get to the top, climb aboard smaller tram cars and prepare for the ride of your life. Some call this the highest and scariest cable car ride in the world. The tram slows to nearly a stop, suspending you over 1,600 feet above ice crevasses and the purest white snowfields. Mountaineers below look the size of ants. This is scenery so breathtaking you find yourself whispering for no reason. And the silence of suspension in flight lets you drink in the incredible, incredible beauty. This is simply awesome. The steepness of the slopes here is astounding. To call this ride simply spectacular is to call the Alps just a bunch of hills. It is the single most impressive ride I have ever taken. We zoom across the Vallée Blanche, then descend over the Glacier du Gant toward Heilbronner Point in Italy. The East Station at Heilbronner Point is about 300 feet above one of the highest passes in the Alps, the Col du Gant, at just over 11,000 feet. The station straddles the French border with Italy and overlooks the Italian towns of La Palude and Trèves and the city of Courmayeur. The Mont Blanc traffic tunnel emerges from the mountain down below. You can enjoy a short break here to stretch your legs and enjoy the heights. The aerial ride back to France is no less impressive. It's about a 30-minute ride each way. Crossing these ice fields on the ground, though, can be tricky. As the bottom of a glacier moves over a rock ridge, the ice on top splits into crevasses hundreds of feet deep. Adventure seekers can also hike around the Mont Blanc Massif on a 200-mile circuitous journey through the Great St. Bernard Pass to the north. Crossing these mountains by automobile is the easy way, of course, thanks to a 7-mile-long tunnel 8,000 feet beneath Mont Blanc. Our aerial ride is over much too soon, and we return back to the station. Here, beneath the summit of the highest Alp, adventurers come and go across the Vallée Blanche, struggling under the weight of packs, enduring the scarcity of air at this altitude, their lungs thirsting for oxygen. Climbers thread themselves through countless needle and dome-shaped summits. Trekkers begin their final ascent of Mont Blanc, a 10-hour trip. They reach for one of the most magnificent peaks on the continent. At 15,771 feet, Mont Blanc is the top of Western Europe, a land among the clouds, and the peak of our journey to the Alps. It's been a pleasure traveling with you. Thank you very much for joining me.